And what I'd like to do in the next 45 minutes is just give you an example of how I stepped outside my comfort zone. I was pursuing maybe not driving up my stock price or coming up with a new product, but what I was pursuing was professional creativity and personal fulfillment. And I think that I'm hoping that my example will teach you a new way to kind of step outside your box and have a fresh outlook on the possibilities. So here is my story. This is my passion. I didn't know it was going to be my passion. I had no clue. In fact, I was interviewed by a reporter a couple of years ago who said, "Now wait a minute, you were brought up on the East Coast in the Washington, D.C. area. How in the heck did you end up on Mount Everest? Were you raised by wolves?" And I said, "No, actually, I think I was a brownie when I was in elementary school." That was my certification for this jaunt. But just the process of defining your passion, of figuring out what it is that makes you tick, is kind of an interesting journey, and I'll just tell you in a few short words how that happened. So as I mentioned, I was brought up on the East Coast. I went through a very kind of traditional upbringing as a physician. I went to my undergraduate training at University of Virginia, and I did my postgraduate training in emergency medicine at George Washington and Georgetown universities. So there I am in the middle of the big city, going down the career path to be the best emergency doctor I can be, and if I end up with George Clooney, well, that's so much the better. No, just kidding, but I won't say that I didn't look at that show and say, hey. So I'm going down this career path, and in fact, as I'm about to graduate, I'm signing on to the academic faculty at George Washington. But shortly before I graduated, I got hauled into the office of my faculty advisor who said, "Luanne, what's your niche?" And I'm like, well, wait a minute, what do you mean niche? I don't have a niche. I'm type A. I guess there are probably a few of you like me in the audience. What do you mean I got to have a niche? Hey, you didn't say niche. It wasn't in my homework. And his point was, you got to have something that makes you tick, that turns you on, that kind of turns your crank to keep going with your professional and personal life. And his idea was, you know, it's not going to be good enough to be the best emergency physician in the universe and save all these lives. You got to have something else to keep you coming into work and to keep you fresh and motivated and innovative. And so I went on this mad, frantic search for a niche. I'm tearing out of the office, grabbing everything. Oh, what's my niche going to be? So I came back to his office the next day, and I'm like, help me out here. What do you think my niche is? And he said, well, why don't you start by figuring out what it is that really turns you on? What do you like to do more than anything? I said, well, I like to go on vacation. You know, I like to go camping. I like to go, you know, climbing, canyoneering. But how in the heck am I going to merge that with medicine? I couldn't see a way. So I went out looking in all different corners. I thought I love teaching. And what better way to teach even more people than I can reach in a classroom by getting into the media. So I became a medical broadcaster for a little while. But as you can see, I needed it out because, my God, look what it did to my hair. I was help! Get me out of that niche. So I started to think about, well, now wait a minute, maybe there is a way I can practice medicine and combine it with my love for the outdoors. I really started to talk out loud about going and taking a job in Yellowstone National Park once I finished my training. And it wasn't something that my mentors kind of grasped onto. To send me out into the middle of nowhere didn't do them any good. They weren't particularly proud of that goal. But then I read this great quote. This was written by a fellow who was just going into medical school. And he said, you know, he said it very eloquently, what's scarier? Staying in a job that doesn't really turn you on, or taking that risk and stepping outside your comfort zone? So I said, well, heck, I'm going to try it and just see what happens. I took a job in Yellowstone National Park and loaded up my Jeep and drove out. And I thought that I knew everything I needed to know to be a great physician wherever I was quickly re-educated. I really was outside my comfort zone. I took this shot on the bottom right on August 6th. So when I was treating 10 victims of cold injury in the middle of summer, and I was learning some valuable lessons about prevention and treatment of cold injuries in August, for Pete's sake. I was asked to help the rangers care for this fellow who fell climbing and broke his leg. And oh heck, I know exactly how to splint the leg and get it treated and get his pain treated and resuscitate him, but I didn't know the first thing about how to pluck him off the side of this mountain and safely get him off and keep our rescuers from falling victim to a terrible fall. So I was re-educating myself.